In the 1840s, Ireland experienced a Great Famine. Between 1 million and 2 million Irish died from hunger and disease. Another 2 million left Ireland. This is one of Ireland's famine monuments. It's a sculpture of a coffin ship. They were called coffin ships because 1 in 3 of all those who sailed from Ireland to North America died at sea. Were they economic migrants or were they refugees, fleeing famine and death? The truth is that they were both migrant and refugee. Hundreds of thousands died crossing the Atlantic to America. It didn't have to be so. This is a modern replica of an immigrant ship. Her name is Jeannie Johnson. She was not a coffin ship. Jeannie Johnson made 16 journeys from Ireland to North America. She carried over 2,500 passengers and nobody died. Jeannie Johnson carried a medical doctor who treated all on board her and sufficient food to feed all passengers. She is a reminder to all of us that with humanity and proper planning, migrant refugees can survive long sea journeys. We know from the history of the Irish in North America that once they were accepted and assimilated into their new communities, these migrant refugees made great contributions to their new country. 21 US presidents have been descendants of Irish immigrants.
How countries who are receiving emigrants deal with the crisis situation they find themselves in seems to have changed little since Ireland's Great Famine. 150 years ago, the first destination for Irish famine emigrants was Canada. Like Ireland, it was part of the British Empire, and the movement of people was considered internal migration. The Irish disembarked at Grosse Isle, close to Quebec, a reception centre. In June 1847, there were 40 ships, mostly coffin ships, quarantined and lined up waiting to discharge their estimated 15,000 human cargo onto Grosse Isle. Grosse Isle was a small island with a small number of doctors and only 150 hospital beds. There was a 5-day wait to be inspected by a doctor. The emigrants were locked in holes. Large numbers died, mainly from typhoid. Local authorities had acted to protect the health of the local population, but disease does not recognise nationality, nor does it recognise legal or illegal status. Dead bodies were thrown overboard into the St. Lawrence River, spreading disease further. Within months, the number of emigrant ships doubled, and the waiting period was extended to 15 days. Eastern Canada was overwhelmed with a typhoid epidemic. In response and desperation, local authorities ended the quarantine and medical checks. They released all those on board the ships into the countryside. Their attitude was to get them away from here as fast as possible, to move on the problem. In Ireland, British authorities made it more expensive and more difficult to find passage on board any ship to Canada. These are attitudes we still see today as Europe struggles to deal with Middle East and African situations. Many Irish emigrants did not see Canada as their final destination. They were leaving a British-controlled country, Ireland, for another British-controlled country, Canada. They wanted to pass through Canada and to settle in the independent United States. This is a common feature of refugee travel today. History tells us that in the United States the Irish faced religious discrimination. The Irish were Catholic, whereas the original US settlers were Protestant and even Puritan. We see a similar situation today with non-Christian refugees seeking refuge in a nominally Christian Europe. I will end by reminding you that between 1850 and 1950, the majority of immigrants into the USA came from Germany, Italy, Sweden, the United Kingdom, final destination countries for today's refugees. I would also remind you of Brendan's statement that 21 US presidents are of Irish descent.
History tells us that the humanitarian helping of refugees comes at a price. But it also tells us that making it harder to leave a home country and again harder to enter a new country will not solve the problem. When staying put results in almost certain death, there is nothing to be lost in leaving to seek peace and prosperity elsewhere. The motto of the Royal Lifesaving Society worldwide is, "Whomsoever you see in distress, recognise in them a fellow human."
Thank you.